Yeah, let's talk about tailgunning and the difference in the.
Let's do it.
The difference in the race between if you're attacking a lot and covering things, or if you're at the back, and I was trying to be as smooth as possible.
So for 41 minutes into the race, or I guess from point zero or minute zero into 41 minutes of the race, what was your normalized power?
242.
And my normalized power at that point, at 41 minutes into the race, was all the way up to 312, which is pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. And you weigh how much on that race day?
Probably 189.
And then I was weighing 145 that day.
Yeah.
So that shows two totally different ways.
Quite a big difference in the amount of work you guys did.
Mm-hmm.
So there is, you hear this all the time. Like, this is all you hear is, never give up a position, be at the front, fight for every wheel, right?
That's what people say.
We didn't say, like, when I attacked, I won the race.
Yeah.
So,
good job, mate. Yeah.
First Cat 3 race, won. Awesome.
Got the points. It's pretty sweet.
But thank you, Jonathan.
The common wisdom, so to speak, is always to stay in that front third, stay in the top 5, whatever it is.
And then you have to fight the whole time for every wheel. And I think it matters the course and the category, right? So if the category, a higher level category and a technical course, you can have teams and it can be 30 miles per hour the whole time. There's no spot to move up. This course we've done before. There's no teams that are just going to push it the whole time. I think if you weren't there, Jonathan, there'd be maybe less attacks.
Yep.
And every lap, it kind of fanned out. After the headwind section, everyone was tired. There's a little bit of crosswind. It fanned out. And you could literally get to the front in about 5 seconds. So thinking that, why I didn't put out a whole bunch of energy until the last 9 minutes.
Yeah, you had really good course knowledge. I mean, you did this, literally 3 times that last weekend?
Yeah.
And so this is a big misunderstanding, I think, and it's hard because you have principles, right? But a lot of people just take the principles as absolutes and they forget to separate principles and context and try to figure out what to do.
Still got to be logical.
Yeah, because there's you've mentioned, there are plenty of different courses. Like a course like Nevada City, for example, is going to be very different from other courses. And technical races, if it's like an urban crit and you've got a lot of turns and a lot of something like that, then it is really important to make sure that you stay in the right position to be able to make those sort of moves. But in this case, it wasn't even needed. But the cool part is, so there's the attacking side of things, which, like we talked about, maybe on those more technical courses, you have to be able to kind of match those attacks or be in the position to at least be able to maybe make some of those attacks, that sort of thing. Yeah. But on a course like this, you don't have to. But it's cool how, as a team of 2, we were able to utilize both strategies, and it ended up working out really well. It's kind of an ideal scenario. Doesn't always come out ideal.
And if there was a breakaway, you would have got in it because you were right up there.
Yeah, well,
which is cool.
Yeah, I was in a breakaway. I bridged for 1 whole lap, and then I was in a break for for a lap and a half. I think.
So if one would have survived, though, I think you would have been in it.
And you also know where your fitness is right now, so that if a break had gotten away, you'd let it establish itself and then get across to it. I'm sure you would have tried at least.
Yeah,
probably done.
I would have tried.
Yeah, Nate wasn't sitting back there because he needed to. He was sitting back there because he could, and that's like an important distinction.
It's an appropriate strategy considering what you know about this course, what you know about your fitness, what you know about your competition.
Yeah. So I went into the TrainerRoad analytics thing and I broke it up into 2 different laps. The first one of 41 minutes of 242 normalized power. The last 9 minutes, my normalized power was 367. So that's a
difference.
120 watt difference. To give you an example, at my current FTP, that 242 normalized power for the first 41 minutes, that's about me doing a little more than half of Baxter. But at sea level, it's probably like half of Baxter. Yeah. So you can think that is...
So that's like a 60%
what percentage of your FTP?
Oh, I don't know. Someone do the math.
Yeah, somewhere around 50 to 60%.
Like 50 would be nice. I'd have a 500 watt FTP.
It's like an endurance ride.
It's an endurance ride, right? Like that I could hold for, at sea level, probably 9 hours.
Right.
Or maybe more. So that just shows you, at those last, I think I moved up at 4 laps to go. Then I was fighting for every wheel, and I was pushing a lot of watts, but I was so fresh during the race. You only had to work for 9 minutes rather than, you can think of a trainer workout. 9-minute workout versus 50-minute workout.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about is when you were at the back here, and I was constantly attacking, and there weren't that many attacks outside of what I was doing. But when I was constantly attacking, the people that were eager beavers, so to speak, that really wanted to make sure they didn't miss a move, that sort of a thing, they were the ones that were going single file and trying to hold on. They were getting tired, but where you were at,
costly stuff,
it was really easy because it kept yo-yoing like that, and you were able to just stay consistent.
It was really good because, so here's what I was thinking in my mind, and people who hate race reports, sorry, but this is strategy.
This is strategy.
So you're out front and you're attacking. So anyone who wants to get in the break or is that kind of rider is spending all this energy, right, the whole time, and they're going to get tired for the finish. And so what's either going to happen is you're going to establish a break. That's great. I can try to bridge, but if not, at least you're in the break and you got a good chance at the end. The other kind of people, maybe there's a sprinter, right? But on this course, with the headwind coming in, and we like scouted it out and we talked about it. We've talked about it on this podcast about attacking into a headwind. And if you attack into a headwind when there's not a team to help cover you and a gap establishes, you get the rider's dilemma of
hesitance.
Yep, if I cover this, I'm going to lose the race. I went that a couple extra seconds for someone else to come around me and cover it.
But then everybody else thinks that.
Yep, and then you're so far ahead. And I did it far enough out at 52 seconds that it is like that's as a sprinter, that's too far. You can't start sprinting at 52 seconds. It's really good is that the people who would be in the breakaway got tired with Jonathan, but then I jumped the sprinters early, and it wouldn't have worked as well if we weren't strung out. If you string it out fast like that, it was I think single file all the way. Right?
Oh yeah.
So if Jonathan were to, so you're really only racing about 5 people then.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone in the back of the field is no longer in the race for the win. So that's another great strategy. And if you weren't there for the end, it would have been a totally different race because, I couldn't have dictated the pace or made it fast. And if it was slower, they would have had a easier chance to jump on my wheel when I attacked.
Sure.
More people would be there. I'd have to accelerate faster.
One key point with this course, and this happens with a lot of courses, is the tight turns that you experience toward the end of the lap. Those sections are bottlenecks on the last lap, meaning if somebody messes up in front of you or somebody takes a bad line, it can be the separation that doesn't allow you to win the race later on. Yeah. So it was, I think, a good time to attack in that case was to go before that to string it out. So then we had a clear track and we didn't have to worry about anybody in front of us.
What also happens too is that you can't pass with fitness on those tight sections. There's maybe like 1 or 2 people who will come around like dive bomb something, but in another section, and you've probably seen it where it's wider, and a whole train of people come up the side, right? If that can happen at any time during the course, and one teammate can sacrifice themselves. But if you're going, I think we had a tailwind, but we were going 35 miles per hour into a corner. There's not much you can do to pass you. You're not going to go in at 40 and hit the brakes and like
you crash. Yeah,
it worked out. I think the best part is at my car before the race, we said, let's do exactly this.
And then we did. And it worked out.
That never happens.
So some data on this, and like we said, the race will be really cool to see on YouTube, so you can check that out. But some data on this, I attacked 19 times over 600 watts, but they were 620 watts is like the average on the attacks. The lead out attack, so it was just a 671 watt peak, but it was 500 normalized power for 30 seconds, and then 366 normalized power after that, I guess on the lead out part, right, of holding you there at the end of the race. It was, and this is usually like the number one thing not to do, but once again, in this case, I wasn't focused on winning the race. I was focused on making it hard for myself, and sure, make it hard for others too. But it was 500 normalized power for the first minute of the race, which is really high, and then 400 normalized power for the first lap, which is about 2.5 minutes. But that kept it single file for the first bit of the race, and it did spit people out of the race instantly on the first lap. Yeah. So in this case, if you have a rider that's going to be a sacrificial lamb, so to speak, that wants to be the attacker, it can be really helpful. And especially if that rider still is able to accomplish their goals, then that's really cool. And then if you have the other person that's tail gunning, on the same team, it can be a really good combination to use.
Or if they're a sprinter. Like that's another example of if we had a couple of people try to get in a breakaway and then you have sprinters who just sit in the whole time.
Yep. And then the last thing I wanted to share on this is teamwork only works when everyone is 100% committed. When you have a rider that's, kind of committed to executing the plan.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of a team. Yeah. Everyone's on the same page or it falls apart.
Yeah. And so it's on the onus is on you as a team member to express your desires before that race, long before, communicate them. So then there is something that you can actually get behind, and hopefully go with. That's a good team. A bad team would be, actually not necessarily bad, but just a team might just tell you exactly what to do and you have to do it.
Something else you guys demonstrated is it doesn't have to be a big team. I mean, you guys were a team of 2, and you pretty much owned that race. I mean, you ran it as you planned, and it worked out, and you got the win.
Yeah.
So, pretty impressive.
Neat stuff. Good job, Nate.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah.
By the way, I was in my car. I was planning on having here. I won a beer, a giant like microbrew beer.
Yeah.
That's for you. And I won $65. That's for you.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah, you're the lead out man.
one
So
thing
you
I
get
want
it.
more than mine.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so remind me afterwards. It's in my car. It's
Wow.
like giant too. It's like a local,
Fantastic.
huge thing.
All right.
It's like a quart. I don't know.
Yeah, like
Half a
magnum
gallon
of wine.
I don't know.
Oh, or a growler?
I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Chad
Either way,
wa-
it's a lot of
It's a
beer.
big beer.
Chad wants Nate to keep winning races.
Yeah.